Welcome, everybody. My name is Andy. This is Andy Parrish Outdoors. Thanks for joining me tonight. I'm glad you could be here. I'm pretty excited. We've got a couple guests on tonight that I think are going to be, we're going to have a pretty awesome conversation. And I'm really interested to hear what they have to say because tonight's topic is going to be winter camping and specifically kind of deep winter camping. So when we get into the not only the below freezing, but well below freezing. And it's an area that I've just kind of dabbled in and want to know more. So these are two guys that I wanted to bring on board. If you're new to the channel, this channel is all about, backpacking, outdoor adventures, gear, tips and tricks, a whole range of different things. So if any of that sort of thing interests you, go ahead and subscribe, click that notification bell. That way you can be alerted every time I post new content. So let's stop with this and let's dive right in. Let's bring these guys out because that's what we're all here for. I've got Justin Outdoors joining us from the Calgary area, and I've got Rob Pelton also from Minnesota, I believe. He's always up there doing weird and wacky stuff. Let's bring them out now. And how you guys doing?
Hey, good.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for jumping in. I really appreciate it. Tonight is a chance to talk a little bit and get to know you guys a little bit better. But before we dive into the topics, why don't we just take a minute just to introduce you guys to the audience? I'm sure they know you, but let's tell a little bit about yourself or about the channel. Rob, why don't you go first?
All right. Well, Rob Pelton, backpacking channel, outdoor channel, which is why we're all here, right? So I am in Minnesota. You did mention that. I wasn't born here, born in Florida, but found myself up here. I did it backwards. Anyways, been up here since 93 or 94. And up here is where I learned, and fell in love with the outdoors. I always did a lot of stuff in the outdoors when I was a kid, Boy Scouts and all that kind of thing. And I've always kind of kept with it. And now since I'm in Minnesota, you got to learn to adapt in the wintertime. Just because it's cold, life doesn't stop. And that means playtime too. So and I decided to start videoing it because they do cool stuff. So may as well archive that. So here I am, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And Justin?
Yeah, so Calgary, for those of you who don't know, is in Canada. So it does get cold up here. We're in winter conditions pretty much 9 months of the year. Starts snowing in September and keeps snowing until May. So it's good for ski season and winter camping. So get lots of practice out there. If it wasn't for getting on the wintertime, I'd be just going out for 3 months of the year. So
So you better like the deep winter camping or else you barely get any of it. So
yeah, exactly.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks for jumping in. We're gonna, check with the chats throughout the day. So, we're gonna have these guys on for 45 minutes to an hour and just chat. We will interact. So if you guys have questions for them, feel free to throw those out in the chat. We will look for those. We will bring them up. It's good to see a couple folks already showing up. Some don't need much of an introduction. Tim's here. Looks like Tanya's here. John is here as well. Another John also. So good to see you guys. As you guys have questions, comments, go ahead and throw those out. But I'm going to go ahead and get the ball rolling a little bit and talk a little bit about what we're all here for. And that's the topic of deep winter camping. And I guess the first thing we should probably do is, give my definition of what that is, because I'm sure it's probably a pretty made up term. But, when I think of winter camping, I'm here in Indiana. So in Indiana, you're going to get below freezing. You're going to have a couple times that maybe get down to 0, maybe a little bit below that Fahrenheit, which is negative 18 roughly Celsius for our metric friends.
We're gonna have to make that conversion pretty much this whole time, I'm sure.
I was joking with Rob, and I don't know if I still have it up, but at one point I literally had a spreadsheet up to the side that just showed what's the difference between Fahrenheit and Celsius, so we can keep track of it and be talking about the same thing as we go. But to me, deep winter camping is when you get into the really cold temperatures. You're looking at the, maybe even sub-zero Fahrenheit, -6, -18, -20 degrees Celsius and below. It doesn't seem like that many people get out and do that thing. But I do notice you two both have done your fair share of, getting out not only below freezing, but well below freezing. Tell me a little bit, how'd you guys get started with that? Justin, why don't we start with you? Because I know you said, it's 9 months out of the year, so you better like it. If you want to be outdoors, you better get used to it. But how'd you get started doing kind of the dead of winter camping?
It started back when I was a kid. We'd build snow forts and then just go out and like spend the night living in them. Bring out some food and snacks and sleeping bags, and that was just kind of like something we did in the wintertime. And I kind of took a pause from like a little bit of my adult life, and then like about 8 years ago, when I really started getting into doing a lot more backpacking more often, is when I just decided to get gear up and start doing winter camping more. And that was a big thing for me. Like when I was younger, I just couldn't really afford the gear, and the gear wasn't as good as it is now. It wasn't as lightweight. It wasn't as warm, so it was a little bit harder to get out there. Whereas now, even on a budget, you can still get out in some pretty cold temperatures, and just with couple
Yeah.
key pieces of gear to supplement your summer gear. So, really, I started pushing my limits in the last probably like 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, it's been pretty impressive, some of the stuff that you've put out. It's been fun to kind of follow along. Rob, what's your story when you talk about coming from Florida?
Well,
How do you pull that off?
my first winter camping trip was in the Boy Scouts in Georgia, and it was freezing. It got down to like 40. I mean, it was cold, right? And then, but as I progressed through life, kind of like Justin alluded to a little bit, life kind of takes over for a little bit, and then when you start settling into that, you get into, back into your things here. So when I moved north, I originally moved to North Dakota with my dad. And my dad was an avid outdoorsman, hunting, ice fishing, that kind of thing. So I got into hunting and ice fishing. I mean, didn't matter how cold it was, because you had your ice house and everything like that. But I learned in those conditions, whether you're sitting in a deer stand or sitting on a bucket on the ice, with the proper gear and clothing and boots and preparation, it can be a lot of fun. Because if you're cold and miserable, that's not fun, especially your feet. If your feet are cold, you're just going to be miserable. So I
Yeah.
took those lessons and I didn't really shy away from it. Now I started to do a lot more winter camping as I started doing a lot more backpacking. Um, what seems to happen is that I found myself with some like-minded fools, who you are out there, and we decided to just keep backpacking, keep camping. Then it turned to, okay, we're going to do a below freezing trip. Oh, let's push it down a little bit more. And then last year, we went to the Boundary Waters, a group of us. It was Jeremy with Midwest Backpacker, Miyagi on the Trail, and me, Loesch. We all decided to go to the Boundary Waters and see how cold we can get. And it got down to 27 below zero. That's Fahrenheit, whatever that conversion is, I don't know. But it was a minus 42 wind chill. And it sounds cold, right? It sounds freezing, and it is. But we were prepared, and it was an absolute blast. And plus, there's nobody else out there. There's no bears, there's no bugs, there's no people. It's an absolute awesome time if you're prepared. I mean, I thought it was good, and now I look forward to it. You can't, now with with hot tents coming all over the place, camping season is now 365 days a year, regardless of where you live.
Yeah, isn't that amazing to think of? Because I'm in the same boat. For me, camping was warmer weather. It was probably 3 season camping,
Mm-hmm.
and then you slowly start to say, I don't want to be cooped up all winter long. I want to be doing something. So you start to look at gear. You start to watch other people that are doing, well, gosh, if they can do -27 degrees, if you can go out and do -40, I can find a way to deal with, 10 degrees, 8 degrees. I think 2 weeks ago was the lowest I ever camped, and it was -1 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm like, well, at least I made it to the negative side. Let's see if we can push it a little bit further. I think it's like you guys talked about. It's a little bit fun to kind of push your boundaries a little bit and challenge yourself, but try and do it, in in a smart way. So I've watched a lot of people like yourselves to learn a little bit about that and try and figure out, okay, how do I do this? And maybe for me it was just getting below freezing, getting to 20 degrees, getting to 10 degrees, and then at some point in time, I'll have to make the big trek north and get the really cold temperatures and just try that, because I think it looks a lot of fun as long as you guys are equipped and ready to go. But that kind of dovetails into the next question, which is, what do you really love about winter camping? What's different that you don't get from, the fall camping, the summer camping, that sort of thing? What do you guys really like about the winter camping that you gravitate towards?
Well, I mean, for me, just unless you're ready to go, for me, it's camp time. When you're in the wintertime, it's usually shorter distances, shorter mileage, and you're spending more time at camp. Because deep winter camping, it's very chore oriented. And I like my time at camp. I like doing my chores and making sure everything's done and just that, and the right way. And then, especially with the people you go with, you can just enjoy a lot of time with them at camp. And of course, like I mentioned before, there's less people out there. Now, I'm
Yeah.
very much a people person, but sometimes, you know, at a campsite or campground or a trail, too many people can get a little annoying. But less people, no bugs, no bears, like I said. Um, you can bring actual food. You can bring a steak. It's not going to go bad. You can bring cold things, and you get your own refrigerator out there. So, and if you're pulling a polk, a sled, then you can just carry a lot more stuff. So you can bring all kinds of stuff. That's what does it for me. So.
Justin, what about you? What do you really love about the winter camping side of things?
Yeah, I think a little bit of a different spin for me than with Rob, because I haven't been able to convince that many people to come out with me on camping trips. And I think my partner, she came out with me last year. It was a little
Yeah.
bit colder than we expected, below minus 20 degrees Celsius, and um, yeah, it was just it's tough when you get down to those temperatures, even with a hot tent. You can still, as
Yeah.
soon as you get a chill, it starts getting you. But for me, it's kind of for me, backpacking and hiking, and a lot of it is about pushing my limits and kind of seeing how far I can take things. Like you said, doing it in a safe manner and slowly, kind of
Yeah.
incrementally pushing those limits. But um, I just, yeah, I like getting out there and seeing how cold I can go.
Yeah. Well,
You need to find some crazy friends, Justin. Find some crazy friends, man.
I got to
Yeah.
imagine too. It makes me wonder. Calgary's got to be a pretty active area. I would imagine, and
Mhm.
the winter outdoor activities. I mean, you guys, it's your backyard, it's your playground is right there. So I was lucky enough to head up that way and spend some time in the fall up at Banff. And
Ooh,
holy cow, is
yeah.
it just a spectacular, one of the most breathtaking places I've ever been. And I didn't get a chance to do any hiking or backpacking. It was all, business and corporate stuff. But man, that is high on the bucket list to try and get back out there. Do you notice a lot of other people in the area are really big into the winter sports, or is it harder to find people that are willing to go out in temperatures that cold?
Skiing and cross country skiing, more of the day sports. Like the ski resorts are packed, like tens of thousands of people go out
Yeah.
every weekend skiing, and the cross country ski trails are always busy. But for camping, it's very rare that I'll see anybody else out there, even at more popular campgrounds.
Really? Okay.
And a lot of time I'm breaking my own trail to get to spots and everything. It's fewer, there more and more people. Like, I do know kind of a handful of people who are getting out at least once or twice a month, but I think part of it's the frequency as well. It's just hard to find people who are willing to go out and then that their schedules align so that you can go out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There was a question in here. Let's see if I can find it again. John had asked, coldest temps. So to date, I said mine was -1. John, it was actually at your place who asked the question. His camp out. What's the coldest temps you guys have ever gotten down to? How far have you pushed your limits, Justin?
That was this year. Back in January, it got down to minus 50 degrees Celsius. I just did the conversion, minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit.
Ooh, baby.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Yes. Well done.
That was the coldest. And the crazy part was, when I went to bed, it was minus 35 degrees Celsius. I have a Bluetooth thermometer that tracks the temperature. And the temperature actually, it cracked like an analog mercury thermometer that I had. So that just completely shattered. But then the Bluetooth one tracked it down to exactly minus 50, and then it
Wow.
started warming back up again. But I didn't wake up when it happened because I was just nice and toasty in my sleeping bag, and I wouldn't have known it had gotten that cold if it wasn't for the thermometer.
Yeah,
Wow,
you've got a deep winter setup. I was looking at your sleeping bag. So that's the coldest you've taken it down to is -50. Because
Yeah.
I think one of the videos I was looking at, you were like, I think I can get this down to -40. Well, we'll see. I don't know if that was earlier this fall or maybe it was last year's videos that I was looking at. That's a crazy setup. Rob, what's your
yeah,
is it
yeah.
last year in Boundary Waters?
Yeah, last year was the coldest I slept outside. I was in a hammock. I didn't have a ground set, so I was actually hanging in my ridge runner. I did have one of the thermometers. I had one with me, and then the sensor outside. So in my top quilt, essentially, I had a top quilt because I was in a hammock. It was 83 degrees inside my sleep system, but it was minus 27 outside. So that's a 100-degree swing. Um, but minus 58, that's like deep winter camping. And you don't realize how cold that is. I mean, if anyone's ever experienced 20 below zero, I mean, that's cold. And that commands respect when you're out there. You better know what you're doing. You better be aware because people die in warmer temps than that. So,
Oh, yeah.
Justin, kudos for you for taking that on, man. But that's pretty awesome. The trip that we just got back from, we did our Boundary Water trip again. We were hoping it was going to be 20, 30, 40 below zero. Heat wave. It was like 30 above, which is whatever it is for you guys, but zero. It was like zero.
Freezing.
Yeah, it was like zero, and it was too warm. Our sleds were dragging. It was just too warm. And since it was that warm, there were a lot of people out there, so it needs to be colder.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
next
that's
year,
a good
maybe we'll
question.
come up your way, Justin. We can hit that minus 60, baby.
That would be crazy. Well, what changes, when you get to from, -18 Celsius, 0 degrees Fahrenheit to when you start getting to -20 Fahrenheit, -40 Fahrenheit, -50 Fahrenheit? Does it make that much of a difference in the things that you're doing in and around camp, keeping warm, other than I'm just layering more stuff? What does it take to really push that much colder? I mean, what have you learned, Justin, as you've gone through this to go from, -20 degrees Celsius to -50?
I think the camp life definitely takes a bit of a dive as you get down there. Like Rob was saying, you can do your chores and kind of like have fun around camp in wintertime. But once like I have a hot tent, and the warmest kind of temperature differential I've been able to get in my hot tent is 50 degrees Celsius. So I think I'm trying to think what the temperature would have been here. So went from minus 30 Fahrenheit up to about 60 Fahrenheit, I think.
Ooh.
Or 50 to 60 Fahrenheit. So that was the difference I was able to get in my hot tent. But once it starts getting down to minus 40, that you're still just getting it up to being just around freezing at that temperature.
Right.
So you still have to be really prepared with all your clothing. And then for me, I just got into my sleeping bag and just read.
Yeah.
Yep. And as soon as you get comfortable, you got to pee.
Yeah. a pee bottle becomes even more essential in that scenario.
It's true.
Is it really?
Pee bottles are valuable. And if you're in a hammock, a funnel. Bring a funnel. I'm serious.
Wow. Okay. I don't have that in my gear. I've got who's got a video on their pee bottle? Justin, do you have one yet?
It's in my winter camping gear list.
Okay.
There you go.
I'll have to go.
Gear,
no, I think I've seen that. That's pretty recent. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. Okay. So, sleep system, you talked a little bit about hot tents, both of you guys. I heard that come up, and that seems to be a bigger craze. It seems like the last couple of years. I know people have been doing that, especially in the hunting community forever, but
oh yeah,
I'm seeing it more and more in the backpacking side of things over the last 3 or 4 years for sure. And it's kind of exploded.
It's getting lighter, I think, is the big change. The gears, the tents and the stoves are getting lighter.
Yeah. So I think that maybe opens it up to backpacking, whereas before it was, you're going to drive the truck in and set up a huge, 50-pound canvas tent and, get the stove going and do that sort of thing. So having it, 4 or 5 pounds for a tent, 4 or 5 pounds for a stove, maybe on some of these setups is crazy light. So
Yeah, it is, and it's funny with the introduction to all these newer, lighter weight hot tents. I'm coming from a place where, just like you said, like the canvas hot tents, things like Snow Trekker, Esker,
yeah,
canvas, heavy duty, and canvas is a far superior material for hot tents because it breathes, it's flame resistant, what have you. But with these new tents, yeah, they're lighter and they're more affordable. So I think it's affording a lot of people just the opportunity to buy them, use them, and extend their camping season, which is what I think is amazing about those things. Um, and for what a decent tent is, I mean, you can get one off of Amazon for $150, buy a stove for $200, and you're good to
yeah,
maybe freezing. Maybe just below freezing. With a or even more if you have a decent sleeping setup. But
Yeah.
The cold temperatures that I experienced, it's cold for most people. Like most people, normal people, just like you're camping below freezing. Well, no, I'm camping below zero. Way colder than that. But I'm coming from that old school thinking. I know of a group here in Minnesota. It's the Winter Camping Symposium, and these guys are true, like expedition deep winter guys. Like baseline is 20 below zero. If you can get down to 40, 50, 60, they're having just an absolute blast. Their polks are 12 feet long. I mean, they got the big Arctic
wow,
coats and parkas, and they got the big tennis racket snowshoes because these guys are, and they go in for days and days at a time. And that's where I always think hot tent comes from. So when this new stuff comes up, I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and it makes so much sense why it's out there. If you are looking for someone to follow for that deep winter camping, a guy named Ryan Fox, he has an Instagram, Ryan Fox and the number 4. Look at some of his pictures of his deep winter setup. That dude legit, like 100%. Like I can only imagine or hope to get on one of his trips one day, and of course I'll video that. So
that's crazy. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
John
like
and Miyagi bring up a point about mental preparation. We talk about gear, being ready with whatever equipment we're taking out there. But when we talk about mental preparation, how does that change when you're dealing with temperatures, negative 40 below, negative 20 below, even out there?
well, for me, depending on how long your hike in is going to be, you have to force yourself to slow down. Being a backpacker, you kind of want to go, 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 and get mileage in. But if you're in those really, really cold temps, you need to control your sweating. Because if you sweat too much, that can be very, very dangerous. That's why you see a lot of wool and synthetic materials.
Yeah.
Cotton. That's the occasions where cotton will actually kill you, can turn you hypothermic, and you can die. So not only that, so everything you do has to have a purpose and be pretty deliberate. Whether it's uh, processing firewood, an accident like burying
Yeah.
an axe into your foot in the middle of nowhere at 20 below, you got a situation. So you have to be very, very controlled and just be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you find that the risks are that much higher in the dead of winter versus any other time of year?
Yep.
Justin, what
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Everything just comes with more risk. Like Rob was saying, like you cut yourself, and it's harder for people to get to you. You're
Yeah.
more likely, if you can't move, you can't stay warm. If you don't have, like, that's always been something that I have top of mind. Like, and I think that's where for me a lot of the mental is kind of knowing my limits and preparedness and making sure that I am just slowly increasing my limits. Because even something like slipping and rolling your
Yeah.
ankle or breaking a bone, and
Yeah.
if it immobilizes you and you can't get your like shelter and warmth around you, like then you're probably gonna die. So that's why I always make sure I have my sleeping bag easily accessible, my shelter easily accessible, so that if I do have an accident, then I can get myself into shelter until help arrives.
Yeah, having communication, something along those lines. If you've got, you're not going to have cell phone signal, but you might have a satellite communicator, Garmin InReach, or something along those lines, maybe to
Hmm.
help. Or, as Rob talked about earlier, maybe you're going in a group if that's a possibility, so that, if somebody goes down because of the cold, everybody else can kind of pick up the slack and get that that person into, whether it's a hot tent or next to the fire, get them warmed up, get the core temperatures up, whatever it is. Or if it's an injury, that's where I think the challenge of solo hiking in the dead of winter really comes into play, because slipping on the ice is an easy thing to do. So just being a little more cautious, a little more careful, taking your time. Rob, you talked a little bit about slowing your pace down, not being in such a rush. I've also found in the little bit that I've done is the distances that you cover a lot of times are going to be quite a bit shorter in the dead of winter than what you do, in the middle of summer, where maybe you're cranking some miles or whatnot. But
Right.
in the dead of winter, it's more a reasonable. You try and get to camp a lot earlier because you got a lot more chores to do, processing wood or whatnot. And that's not even if you're not using a hot tent, because I've seen you guys go out there without hot tents, and
Yep.
I don't think I've seen either one of you. And I've not seen everything, but you always have a fire going at some point in time, having a way to warm up, dry out. Justin, I was watching your one where you didn't even take a shelter out with you. So, it can be done and you can be comfortable, but
Yeah.
you got to think of all these other things, it sounds like.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and a
And
lot of
a
time for me,
lot
the fire is just to keep keep me moving and active. It adds a little bit of warmth for sitting around, but it's that kind of hour or two before you eat dinner, depending on what time you get to camp, that stuff. And up here, we have the issue of, like you're saying, with the time of day is it gets dark at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So you're just not able to do anything for long periods of the day.
What time's the sun come up?
It's usually 9 o'clock.
Okay. So shorter days, you have to deal with that in your planning to make sure you get to camp. Are you starting out before dawn sometimes on some of these treks?
Not usually. I'm not going
Okay.
on. I haven't really been planning any big expedition trips, so it's usually I usually plan it so it's shorter days, like under 10 kilometers, unless I'm
Okay.
on
Exactly.
skis. Then I can usually cover more distance, like 3 to 4 kilometers an hour on skis.
Okay.
I've been scoping those skis out, man.
Yeah.
Those things look pretty cool. But you're right. We typically don't head out, before sunrise either, because that's usually the coldest part of the day.
Yeah.
You want to get a little bit of that sun on you. The sun can make a big difference. But just to digress a little bit, you talked about electronics. Whether it's
Yeah.
a phone signal or a GPS unit. At those temps, those kill electronics. So you be very, very mindful if you do have an emergency device. Justin, you got two of them back there, so you're double covered.
Yeah.
Keep those warm. Keep those next to your skin. Keep them warm, because those things will die in a hurry at those temps, and then they're just paperweights at that point.
Yeah. Well, and that's probably another change too. You talk about keeping the electronics warm, but how many of you are sticking your water bottle inside your jacket to keep it from freezing, or your electronics if you've got a backup battery bank or anything like that for the cameras that you're taking out into the wilderness. You got to make sure those die faster. You're packing that along your body just to keep that stuff from freezing and dying. Um, you know, there are definite changes that you do when it's below freezing.
Yeah. Yeah, your body for a lot of the time of the day is the only source of heat you have. So anything you need to keep warm, you have to keep on your body.
Yep.
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that goes for water too. Getting water out there. Depending on where you are, we were able to chop through the ice on this last trip, and it was easy to get water there. You boil that, it's fine. But if you can't get to water, if it's 3 feet of ice, and you're not going to hack through that with a hatchet. You got to melt snow. There's a lot of things you can do to ice. But staying hydrated at those temps is huge too, because you don't have that thirst because you're cold. But if you're dehydrated, your blood doesn't flow as much, which means you're not going to be as warm. So hydration and nutrition is huge. You need the calories, you need the hydration to stay warm too. That's all a big part of it. So when we're out there, we chop wood and we eat. That's it. And maybe we can go on a day hike or whatever, but chop wood, eat, go on a hike, pee, chop wood, eat.
And then go home. That's it.
A lot of
That's the
peeing.
trip. Yeah.
Yeah. Miyagi brought 5 pounds of bacon on this last trip. Oof.
Well, and how many guys were on the trip?
5.
5 guys. Okay, so pound each of bacon.
Yeah.
And how many days were you out there?
3.
3 days. Okay. You got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, but that wasn't a meal. That's just snack bacon. That's just the day bacon. You just have
That's right.
It's just there.
So John asks the question, what's the weight difference between your summer pack loadout and your winter pack without using your gear sled? If you're not using a pole, what's the pack weight look like? How big of a difference is it? Who wants to tackle that one?
I'm just looking at my lighter pack here,
Hmm.
and it looks
Of course
like
you can. Yeah, I'm not that organized.
I have to have my spreadsheets pulled up, and it's
Yep.
my lightweight summer setup is 9 pounds, and then in the wintertime it jumps up to about 18 pounds.
Okay.
So it doubles.
Yeah, that's without a hot tent and without a stove, right? So yeah.
That's with a hot tent and no stove. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
Okay.
sense. For me in the summertime, yeah, right around that 11 to 13 base weight. In the wintertime, if I'm not pulling a sled, I mean, I'm probably much more than just now. I'm probably 30, 30 pounds probably.
Okay.
You know, maybe even 40. It depends on what I bring, really.
Yeah.
You know, if it's the hammock, obviously it's a lot lighter. You know, and then it's just bulk at that point because you're 0 degree or minus 20 degrees sleeping bags and quilts that just take up more room, more loft. Not necessarily heavy,
Yeah.
but just you need a bigger pack to fit all those things because I'm sure your coldest sleeping bag, Justin, is probably takes up a lot of room, right? Even if you smash it. So
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Wow. Now you talk about carrying the extra weight. How much of that is how different is your food setup when you're getting into the deep winter stuff? Are you eating the mountain house stuff? Are you eating the same kind of things in the summertime that you're eating in the dead of winter? Rob, are you bringing bacon? Is that the
Bacon,
staple?
steak, brats, sausages, potatoes. We bring actual real food because more often than not, we're gonna have a fire. And cooking real food over a fire, I'm willing to pack that weight in. It's completely fine. Um, when you're on trail in the summertime, having that mountain house meal or peak refuel or whatever, those are good. But in the wintertime, you want some like good home cooking. You want those actual calories, the actual real fat. You want those. And plus, on those kinds of trips, you eat way more than you would ever at home. Even better than you would at home. So for us in my group, it's worth packing actual real food out. That's one of the best parts.
Now, is that because a lot of the times you're dragging the sleds and you can carry a little extra weight?
Yeah, typically. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, even on a backpacking trip, like even in cooler weather, like we'll actually take frozen ribeyes with us. By the time it gets to camp, it's fairly thawed out. We'll throw that on the fire that night. You know, but
Yeah.
only the first night though. We're not doing that for 20-mile days, 3 days in a row. Obviously.
Right. Justin, how's your food? Is it much different from your wintertime stuff if you're hot tenting, that sort of thing, versus if you're just doing kind of a lighter weight, ultralight, backpacking trip?
In the wintertime, I become even lazier than in the summertime when it comes to food. So it's almost predominantly freeze dried meals because I just don't want to have to like deal with dishes or any sort of like dirty anything afterwards. Whereas in the summertime, I'm a little bit more. I'm fine, kind of taking my dishes and like digging a cat hole and doing all that stuff. In the wintertime, I'm just lazy. I just want to.
That's funny. Come on down. We will feed you and fatten you up, man. Ask Miyagi. I mean, Miyagi cooks almost the whole time, and it's
Well, I
awesome.
watch the YouTube videos of you East Coast guys, and you guys are always eating great. You don't see then you have like Devin and I out here just eating freeze dried meals for
Right.
every meal.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, those are good. Both are good. I mean, I love the freeze dried stuff. It's lighter weight. I can get more miles in. There's definitely a convenience factor to it. But there is something, Rob, too, about having a steak at the end of the day that's really nice too. So you gotta pack that weight in. So if it's worth it, if you can carry it,
Right. Which is why my pack is 30 pounds, not 18.
which is why yours is 30 pounds, and you're only going in a mile or
Yeah.
two
Right.
miles or something like that,
Yeah.
so
A
that,
couple
that you
miles
can
max. Yeah.
carry 4 pounds of steak and 3 pounds of bacon and have a good time. So, all right. So now we talked a little bit about what you guys have already done, a little bit about your setups and whatnot. So going forward, where do you guys see the challenges with this stuff in the future? If you've done, -50, and Rob, you've been in the negative, what, low 20, -27, something like that. How far do you want to push it? How far would you push it? And if, are you getting that stuff around you, or are you going to have to look to go, you going up to the Arctic Circle or something, Justin, to break those
Yeah,
records? You got to go somewhere, right?
yeah. I think that's on my list, is to head up to get into the Arctic Circle at some point. I think
Oof.
multi-day trips are on my list to do more of, like get out there for 4, 5, 6, 7 days of winter camping, like trying to actually do some pretty good miles. The hard part out here is finding a place to do that. So I think I might end up going out east for that because of the avalanche danger out here. It's hard to connect
Oh, yeah,
miles like that
Yeah.
without crossing avalanche terrain. So um, unless I just go in the prairies, but then I'm dealing with crazy winds and everything in the wintertime.
yeah.
What
There's
about
always
polar bears?
something,
The polar
right?
bears up there?
Pardon me?
The polar bears up there?
Yeah, up in the Arctic Circle here not so much, but
Yeah, there you what? You have grizzlies, but there's probably not too much of them activity wise. Maybe in the dead of winter, definitely
yeah, not
less
not
than
with
what
the
you're seeing in
grizzlies.
the summer.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I think the polar bears up there. That's where it gets real. Having to bring a firearm and everything just to make sure that you're because
Safe. Yeah,
that's it. Like I don't think they'll even let you go out if you don't have a firearm and are trained to use it.
yeah, yeah. That's hardcore. Rob, what's your how far would you like to push it?
Getting into that, when you're getting into those temps, like there's only there's only so many badges of honor you want to earn, right? So,
True.
if I get down to 30, maybe 40 below Fahrenheit, I'm okay. I don't need to get down to 58. Um, but if it happens to dip down that much, I would like to know that I'm prepared and can handle it. But for me, it would be just more time. I would like to do longer trips. Like we were there for
Yeah,
3 days, 2 nights. I mean, I like to do a week, 10 days, like a big long expedition pack-in trip. I think that would really test my mettle and make sure everything's geared, dialed in. And if you're that far in, you don't have that safety net of your vehicle being just a few kilometers away. You know, um, that's the kilometers for you, Justin. Um,
yeah.
but it would be nice, to really get out there and do that. And then it's real. Then
Mhm.
it's real.
Then you
Yeah.
got to take in like 10 pounds of bacon.
Yeah, man.
You know?
Yeah.
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 Well, that'd be pretty cool. Are any of the guys talking about? Would they be interested in doing something like that, Rob? That you went out with this past week?
Absolutely.
That kind of thing. The
Yeah.
the week long, the 10-day trek
Yeah.
into the boundary waters or somewhere.
Yeah. Justin, you're invited.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sign
man.
me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like a lot of fun. You guys look like you had a rowdy bunch. I saw that pants were optional at one point in time.
My kind of
But you,
party.
yeah, you guys let loose and had some fun, and we're not short on laughs or good times, from what I could tell. So
Yeah. So there were this last trip. There were five of us. Four of us have YouTube channels, right? So it was just nothing but cameras all the time. And
right,
and then one guy he's just an awesome guy. His name is Mule. So Mule, if you're watching, what's up, man? But there's going to be four versions of this trip coming up, and there's already two of them out. Backpacking with Buckley has his out. Midwest Backpacker has his out. If you want to see my version, it comes out Thursday morning, 6 Central, 7 Eastern. So if you care to watch some winter hot tent shenanigans, check it out. It's pretty funny. There's some funny stuff that happens that I throw in there. So
that's always interesting, especially those trips that you guys do when there's multiple people that are all filming.
mhm.
That you get sometimes a completely different perspective of what
Yeah,
was going on, or that somebody has 6 hour gap where they didn't really film anything, and then something really funny happened, or whatever. So it's kind of interesting. I like to do some of the solo stuff too. Justin does a lot of that, but I think it's neat to try and mix it up sometimes. And if
mhm.
you can go with a couple guys too that are filming stuff, that just makes it a good time. At least I find it a good time. So, Justin, do you have any plans for doing those kind of events, whether it's meetups or introducing people into the -40 degree realm or something like that?
um, yeah, it's tough here. Like it's just not a lot of people have the gear to get out to some of the temperatures. So it's trying to time it like in the fall. I'll get it with more people in the fall when temperatures kind of get down to like 20 degrees Fahrenheit, 10
Yeah,
degrees Fahrenheit.
yeah,
Usually there's enough people around then, and it's a bit tougher in the dead of winter. But there's a few people out here like Matty Outdoors. We've gone out on a
Yeah.
couple trips together.
I've
So
been
and
meaning to go visit Maddie for a long
yeah,
time. We just haven't connected yet.
yeah, he just had a kid, so
I know life
he's
changed a
taking it a
little
little
bit.
bit slower. But
Okay.
hopefully the next couple months here, him and I can get out on a trip and do some stuff together.
Now, Justin, do you travel a whole lot for your stuff? You've got, I mean, everything in your backyard. So I don't know that there's much of a need to go too far to see just epic views and trips. Do you ever look at going other places too? Is that in your
Um,
plans?
it's becoming more and more. So I'm actually on next Monday, so like 6 days from now, I'm heading down to Phoenix for 7 days.
What?
Okay.
Um, and then I'm going to be in Nevada for 7 days in March as well. So
Okay.
That's awesome.
gonna have a couple trips, and it's gonna be a crazy year. I have another trip to Europe planned for a hike out there in June. So
Awesome.
this year gets more international.
That's
That's really
cool.
cool. Bigger and
Yeah,
badder. So,
yeah.
Rob, what
What's
about you?
Yeah, I mean, there's always things on the list, right? And we got to move them from the list, the 1 day list, to your actual list.
Right.
But mentioning backgrounds, and every time I watch Justin's videos, he could be talking about like a fork, but his background is like drop dead crazy
Right.
transformation work. It's just it's amazing. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I travel a lot in the U.S. here. I've been down to the south. We go to Arkansas quite a bit here. I've done a lot of those trails. I'm getting a lot of invites to head out east. To do some of the AT out there. Even Devin is talked about doing something out in Utah. So there's a lot of things out there. But international, I've done some international trips in the past. I'd like to get back out again. I've been trying to get Scotland in the mix for a long time. I've been trying to get Peru in the mix for a long time.
That'd be cool.
There's so much. There needs to be like another one of me that does the job and pays the bills, and the other one of me who go adventuring. So
Yeah,
if I figure that out, I'll let you know.
that would be pretty
But,
cool.
but yeah, I mean, anywhere I can go that's new and different and cool, I would love to go. So if anyone wants to buy me a plane ticket and fly me out, let me know. Let's rock and roll. But
nice?
yeah, there's a giant world, and there's so much stuff.
Yeah,
It's never ending. Every
it
list, my every year, my list grows faster than I can check things off. So it's just
Well, because you see
you
all these
watch them.
awesome YouTubers doing these cool trips, and you're like, I can do that.
yeah.
Yeah,
If Justin
yeah,
can do that, I can do that.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there though that watch this stuff and go, "No way! Like I am never doing 40 below." How do you get people? How do you get people though started into maybe just winter camping in general? Like, do you guys have suggestions for people that I have a lot of friends that are fine to go camping, that may even go backpacking from time to time. But you talk about, we're getting below freezing or we're getting well below freezing. How do you even get them below freezing? Justin, you talked a little bit about sometimes it's tough to get the gear. Not everybody has that. Now, I probably have enough that I could probably loan out at this point in time of things that I've tried and used and maybe are just, sitting down in the gear closet somewhere. But how do you get people to come even if it's going to be approaching freezing? Do you ever have suggestions or whatever for how do you get people started in that? We all started at some point. What do you suggest?
I think it's just starting slow, and I found more by error than anything else is that keeping people comfortable and having fun on the trip is key. If you get them out there and you plan for something like low mileage to an easy spot, and maybe they don't feel challenged from like a hiking perspective, but then they're
Yeah.
warm, they eat well, they're comfortable, they have fun, then they're going to be willing to go out again, and they'll just slowly be comfortable pushing their limits, and all of a sudden freezing becomes 20 degrees Fahrenheit, becomes 10 degrees
Right.
Fahrenheit, becomes 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think that's the key is the especially the comfort and warmth. Always
Yeah.
Yeah.
overkill for people who are first going out.
Yeah, I try and bend over backwards to make sure even their workload is less. If we are backpacking, maybe I'm carrying twice as much as they are, just because I want them to enjoy it. Maybe the routes are a little bit shorter. Maybe I'm doing something different for food that they really like. Or maybe I took my daughter backpacking and we're going to do the whole s'mores and, treats
Yeah.
and things like that just to make it a little more fun. because you don't want them to go home and be like, I am never doing that again. You want them to go home and go, that was actually kind of fun. And then all of a sudden their eyes are open to, oh, maybe I'll do that again. And maybe I'll do it 5 degrees colder or 10 degrees colder. And if you can make it comfortable, the temperature doesn't matter quite as much if you're ready for it and you have some experience. Rob, what would you suggest to people that, you talked about how some people are like, you're camping in the middle of the winter. Are you nuts? How do you get, what
So
would you suggest?
it is funny. Just kind of nailed it right there. You keep them warm, you keep them fed, and they can put up with quite a bit. And because if you're warm and fed, then you can appreciate the bigger picture. You can appreciate where you're at. Whether you're in the middle of a snowy forest with snow-covered pines and conifers. Maybe you're on the edge of a river with a frozen waterfall. You can appreciate those things. But if you're freezing and starving, you're not seeing any of that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get someone out there and show them a positive experience, and they're willing to go out again, you start getting texts. Hey, what do you think about this sleeping bag? Oh, now they're starting to acquire your gear, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think about this? And Miyagi just left a comment saying, check out your local thrift stores, like your Goodwills and things like that. There's a lot of wool items in there. You can find wool sweaters and wool pants. Those are going to be ultimate out there. But that's just, like I said, you keep them warm and comfortable, and then they start acquiring their own gear. And next thing you know, they're starting to plan trips. But I will say I have a lot of friends and acquaintances that see everything I do because my social media presence, everything I do is awesome, right? When in real life, I work a job and I'm boring like everyone else. But they always say, hey, I want to go on a trip with you. I want to go on a trip with you. Then I extend the invites. Crickets. It's amazing. But I think they like the idea. They don't like the work behind it.
Yeah. Well, and then I wonder if the invites then go out instead of, for the 20-degree, will they go out and join you when it's 45?
Right.
I wonder if they will. Maybe they will. And maybe that's the intro where you're okay. You're not willing. I'm getting crickets. Nobody's taking my invites at those temperatures. All right, let's creep it up a little bit. See if I can get somebody to bite. Is it 50 degrees? What is it until they're willing to give it a try?
Well, I got the gear, just like you said. You try stuff. I got 2 closets full of gear. I can outfit a Boy Scout troop. Just I can get you out there. I can make you warm. I can make you comfortable. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Come on out.
Yeah. I think once people experience winter camping, they realize that it's pretty darn magical, and then it's a little bit easier if they stay comfortable and warm, to get them out again, because like Rob was saying before, like there's no people, like the snow covered forests are absolutely beautiful. So you can go to areas that you may, like out here at least, like we have reservations that book up within 5 minutes of them opening in January for trips in July. Whereas I can go out there, I could book for tomorrow if I wanted to and go out to the same spots.
Yep. We actually did that. So a buddy of mine, who's on here right now, and I did not agree to chop all the firewood this weekend. We booked trips to head up to the Upper Peninsula. We're doing Pictured Rocks up in Michigan, and right along Lake Superior. It's not going to be sub-zero temperatures, but that place is jam packed. If you don't get your permits for April on, the shoulder seasons through the summer, I mean, that just place packs up. But you could go on right now and there was nobody reserving pretty much any campsite in the entire park anywhere. If you wanted it, you could go get it right now. So nobody's doing that in January or February. But if you go out there in April, May, June, till September, maybe even October, it is, first come, first serve, and you're lucky to get any spots. So that's a big plus, is you get to go to some of these spots. We wanted to go to Pictured Rocks last summer, and the permits, just the campsites didn't work out for the route we wanted to do. So we tabled it, and we thought, well, maybe we'll do it next year or the year after. And then we thought, well, we could probably get permits in the middle of winter, but who's going to be doing that? So, all right, let's try it. So we'll be dragging the hot tent up there, and some good food, and he's bringing, and he jokes about chopping firewood. You're the one, Brent, that's bringing the the battery powered chainsaw. Have you guys ever seen those? The lithium battery, the mini
Yeah.
ones?
The
Let
Show
me know how
Brothers
it goes.
SBO.
Yeah,
They had,
Show Brothers. I saw they had a video where they were.
yeah, and I commented on it, and I was like, "That's genius! I would totally do that. I am ashamed. I'll do that. Especially for a wood stove where you got to cut them like pretty specific, and you got to cut a lot of it. Why
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
Why
I'm
not?
curious how long the batteries last,
Yeah.
how much you can process, and at what temperatures do the batteries really get impacted. If you're only doing 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and the batteries are can last you 30 minutes or something like that, you can get a lot of stuff processed without having to bust out the bow saw or
Yeah,
any of that stuff. So he's
yeah,
bringing that. So he's on wood duty.
I like
I
it.
might split a little bit. I'll baby the fire. I'll do some cooking. I'll sit in the hot tent while he's outside chopping wood. So,
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
although
and
the drawback, Rob, you were talked about keeping warm.
yeah,
You might be out there with the chainsaw freezing your butt off
Yeah.
because it's not nearly as active as swinging a hatchet or an axe or something like that.
yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right. But power tools in the woods, sure. Why not? Yeah.
That's right.
I did. I
Well, who
did
was it?
invite Kevin and Andy, on a trip with us. Nothing crazy, like 0, maybe -5, -10. They politely declined, but the invite's still open. It's probably not the environment; it's probably more the company, and I don't blame them at all. So
I don't know. They did a hot tenting trip and
yeah,
it was down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think for
yeah, yeah.
them,
Cut down to 8. Yeah,
that
yeah.
was that was their coldest. So, for them, I think they'll get there, but it's going
They
to
got good
be,
gear. They got good gear.
it'll be
Yeah.
baby steps though, when you talk about, okay, we can do this at 10 and be comfortable. And the next thing you know, they're trying it at 0. All right, we can pull this off. It's not a big deal.
Right,
And then maybe they're looking, all right, we can get up to Minnesota and try, -20, something like that.
right.
Yeah, those guys have enough gear. They can just keep layering up. They can
Oh
they,
yeah,
they could probably get down to -40 with the gear that the amount of down they have in their closet.
I agree.
That's
I agree.
probably
Not
140. Yeah.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Like 12 across the back wall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, Justin, you do sleeping bag and a synthetic quilt on top of that. Rob, what do you use for your deep winter sleep system?
Well, if I'm in the hot tent, I actually use a cot. A cot, and I have a few pads that I set down on it, and then I actually have a top quilt that I use pad straps and strap it around the cot, and then I put my sleeping bag right inside of it. So I layer. My warmest sleeping bag or top quilt is 10 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't have a 0 or a minus anything. I just layer. So when
Okay.
I got down to that cold, I layered a 30-degree and a 10-degree top quilt, and I had a wool blanket over me, and I was
Okay.
toasty.
And how cold did it get inside the tent, even in a hot tent?
Well, I went down to Iowa a little while ago, and it got down to, I think it was like 8 or something, and I accidentally got the hot tent up to 109.
Yeah, I saw you mention that.
Yeah,
109. So
I
you'd
just got
just be
up, I built a
sweating
fire,
bullets.
I just started cooking, and I just kept subconsciously just taking layers off, and I'm like, it's hot. And I'm like, oh, okay, we need to back that down a little bit, but it was kind of ridiculous.
What was the outside temperature when you got it up to
It was
109?
8.
It was 8.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100-degree temperature swing. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty intense.
I haven't had anything like that. I think the warmest I've gotten mine is when you stand up, I've gotten it to 90 degrees at the peak of the teepee, and it was 12 degrees Fahrenheit outside.
Right.
So it was
Yeah,
a
so
big swing.
when you open all the doors at that temp just to cool off, that's just,
Yeah.
you know,
But I even noticed it was 90 degrees. Yeah, if you stood at the peak of it and you looked at the thermometer up there. But if you were sitting in a chair or you were laying on your pad and I'm just on the ground, it might have been 45 degrees
sure.
Fahrenheit,
Oh yeah,
maybe
there's a
50
big swing.
degrees.
I call
So
them.
there was a big, 40, 50-degree swing from the top of the tent to the bottom of the tent. So, it's not like you're going into a sauna and it's a sauna all day long.
Right.
Especially if you're, I don't let mine typically burn all night long, or I'm trying to sleep some of that night, so I don't stoke it all the time. And you wake up and it's 8 degrees Fahrenheit and it's 0 outside. I've had that, and you can get the fire. It's nice because you can warm right back up, but
Yep.
you got to have the system, the sleep stuff, so that you can be comfortable like you're not even in a hot tent if the temperatures drop. Justin, do you have the same kind of thing where it's super cold by morning, the fire goes out kind of thing?
Yeah, I always let my fire die out before I go to bed, just because then I can just sleep through the night. And usually in the wintertime, I sleep like a baby. So I usually just sleep. I mean, maybe wake up once over the course of the night, which is pretty rare for backpacking for me to wake up that little. But the key for me is processing and getting my kindling and my wood shavings ready for the morning, so I can just wake up, get a fire going in like 2 minutes, and then get the hot tent warming up. Because yeah, I think the best thing about the hot tent is the morning time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because that used to be probably the worst time before the hot tent was
Yeah.
that 15 minutes when you have to get out of your bag and get your clothes back on and get a
Put
fire
your
started or
frozen boots
something.
on that won't fit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
everything's iced up and that's like the most brutal. And I can't tell you how many mornings I've woken up and it's just been like, yeah, I'm not getting out. Can I hit the snooze button and last, 15 more minutes? I don't want to get up. I don't care that I have to pee like crazy and I don't have a pee bottle. I'm starving and I want coffee, but it's 10 degrees outside and it's 90 degrees in my quilt. So
Right.
Yeah.
So a little trick there is before bed, go ahead and boil some water and bring a good thermos, and then in the morning you will have hot water.
well,
So
especially if you use Justin had the little insulative what was that? The little sleeve that you had for your Nalgene that
oh yeah,
until it got to like
Yeah.
-50, it
yeah, I
never
have one of those.
froze.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
it doesn't keep it warm, but it won't be frozen,
yeah,
down to, what's that in Fahrenheit? Down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So get it boiling, put it in there, and
Minus
by
four.
morning
Wow.
you still have at least
Yeah. Is that a
water that's
Nalgene?
drinkable. Yeah, like
Yeah, just
I think
in
he just uses
an,
an
Okay.
Nalgene.
Because I
HDP
have a
Nalgene.
Stanley thermos, like a double walled thermos, and it could be -20, and it's still boiling hot when I wake up in the morning.
That's
Make
crazy.
oatmeal,
Yeah.
coffee, pour it
That's
on your steak so you can get them out of the ground.
yeah. Now that's probably a little bit heavier than what Justin's carrying into the backcountry. So if
Yeah,
you
probably a
can
little
if you can
heavier than
drag
that.
that,
Yeah,
yeah, that keep that.
yeah.
But yeah, some of that double walled stuff, the Yeti containers and whatnot that are like bomb proof. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you could probably have boiling water almost by the following morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right. Well, let's see. Do you guys have any questions that are out there? If you do, go ahead and throw those up to the guys. We've kept them for about an hour, so I don't want to, I want to be respectful. But if you guys have any other questions or anything that you want to ask, Justin or Rob, go ahead and throw those out there. I'm going back and looking at some of the questions and comments from earlier.
There's some
Looks
good
like
ones in there. There's some good
Yeah.
ones in there.
yeah, I saw Smolder says he's bringing his chainsaw.
Nice.
Gary, you got your permits for Pictured Rocks. When are you going? Are you going spring? You going fall? That seems to be the most popular time. Rob, have you been up there before?
I haven't. I was just gonna say it's on my list. I've been invited on a couple of trips, and it just hasn't worked out. And so I'm all for getting up there. I know in the summertime it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous there. But I imagine the winter would have its own charm as well. So yeah, I'd love to get up there for sure.
Looks like Buckley and the guys are talking about the chainsaw. It depends on the hardness of the wood. That's what she said. Yours came with 2 batteries. All right. Well, I've never used a chainsaw. I am so excited to see how that changes processing wood. I don't mind. Rob, it seems like on your videos, you're the guy that's out there doing all the splitting. Jeremy's, you were talking about my shoulder's a little sore
Yeah.
from
So
all the
our
work
is
they were having
pretty
you do.
dynamic. We each have our strengths. Like I'm pretty strong in short spurts, so I can process and saw and chop. But when it comes to hauling wood back to camp, I'm toast. Jeremy, he can just haul wood back and forth all day long. I mean, until the cows come home. I'll chop it up. If he hauls it, it works. It works out well. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I would put Chris. I agree with you. Putting a chainsaw in your backpack. I don't know how heavy it is.
I think they're like 6 pounds for some of the lighter weight ones. I
Really?
was looking into it for trail maintenance activities, and yeah, it wasn't. Wasn't
That's
too
a
bad.
good, yeah, that I can see that. Bring in the polks, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. I always get asked why I never use a pulk, and it's because it's just I need to mention this in a video, but the mountains are just so like the trails are all lopsided and um, curvy that you'd lose a pulk pretty quickly, and just getting pushed down hills with a pulk isn't fun either.
Yeah, would a skeg help with that? Basically a fin. I know in deep snow it can help topple when if you're doing side hills. Have you ever looked into that?
Yeah, I've seen that. I think yeah, I think part of the problem too is that the snow's not deep enough on the really like
I
side. So
got
I
you.
don't know. Yeah, it's Polks, I'd like to make one just for like some flatter trips because they do look like you can get some pretty cool, bring some pretty cool gear out there with you if
Yeah,
you are
like
going to Polk.
chainsaws. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? The sky's the limit. Yeah, I
that's
was
right.
watching one of yours, Justin, not too long ago. I think you were snowshoeing in maybe. I don't think you had the skis with you, but the trail was so uneven and some of the spots looked so sketchy where it was like drop offs to the either side. And you're kind of going around, not like you're on a cliff, but like there was enough of a slide and it's icy and snowy. And I thought, yeah, there's probably in those kind of trails, there's no way you're taking a poke in. You're probably having a hard enough time just navigating with a heavy pack on and snowshoes going over that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ben wants us to start over, so
All right,
let's
fine.
go put you back in the green room, and we'll start over. Ben, we got you. We got another hour in us. No, unfortunately, probably not that long. Well, let's see what else we got going on, guys. That brings Chris, are you talking about adding the chainsaw brings your base weight up to 7 pounds? Yeah,
Sure. I've
I'm
seen
not.
your loadout, Chris.
I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
I was with him last weekend, and I don't think that's. I don't think that's in the cards. John builds it. Now, Rob, I did want to ask you this. So you took a newbie. We were talking about taking, a deep winter camp
A few
out,
of them
taking a
this year, actually.
newbie.
A few of them. Yeah.
And I think you did. Was it around New Year's? You took a couple guys that hadn't been out in those kind of temps,
Yep.
and then you had to baby Buckley this past time. Help
Correct.
him get through. How was it taking newbies out into the backcountry, into the deep winter stuff?
It's well, there's positives and negatives, right? You hope that they're up to the task. The people that I took out, they're backpackers, so they're used to time on trail about being self sufficient. Now, when you add the element of the cold and the snow, it changes the game for them a little bit. But Mike Ghost and John Swag on the Trail 82, those are the two newbies that we brought with us on New Year's Eve. And I talked with Mike a lot about his gear. He actually stayed with me the night before we went up, and we went over his gear to make sure he was good. We ran into a little bit of trouble on the way in. The trail was a lot harder than we anticipated. John got really sweaty and really wet, really soaked. I mean, to a point where his core temperature dropped a lot. And by the time I got to camp, because I was carrying everything, he was kind of in a bad way, and we had to get the camp set up and get wood chopped and get him warm. So there was a little bit of danger to that. But I guess on the plus side of it, after everything was said and done, he recovered. He had a great time. And that also showed that I was capable enough to, to make sure someone was okay and ended up having a really, really good time. And then this last trip, Buckley, we told him there's going to be a lot of chores. And I think he knew there was going to be a lot of wood processing, but I don't think he knew there was going to be a lot of wood processing because we really put him through his paces as well. But by the time it was all said and done, we had some epic campfires. We had well-stocked stoves. It was very, very much worth the effort. And Tim rose to the occasion. He did really, really well. Didn't even complain that much. Not on camera, anyways. So.
Yeah, not on camera. Yeah, he adds you edit that stuff out anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was good. It didn't get super cold. I think the New Year's Eve trip it got down to minus 17, which is chilly.
Yeah.
On those trips, I'm more often too warm than I am too cold ever. But this last trip, like I said, it was just too warm. I think it would have been a little more fun if it was right around 10, but we didn't have that luxury. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the view.
He said it wasn't too bad. He only cried twice alone.
Yeah.
So
Well, that we saw, but there was probably a lot more than that.
Yeah.
that he admits, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Well, why don't we wrap it up here, gentlemen? I think we've gone through just about all the questions. I really just want to say thanks to both of you, to Rob, to Justin, for taking the time to, share some wisdom, share some knowledge about some of this deep winter stuff. I know there's a lot of us. We're all watching the videos. We're all just, engaged with this kind of thing. So it's really cool. The hot tanning is added a whole nother element, but even the non-hot tanning deep winter stuff is really fascinating to me. So thanks so much for you guys for taking some time and jumping on the live stream. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you
That
putting
was
it
a lot of
together,
fun.
man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, be well.